All right, I think we're going to get started. Hopefully everybody got a little bit of food to eat. My name is Derek Dysart. I am a freelance Sitecore developer based in the Milwaukee area here. Been involved with putting this meetup together along with Mike Cognan and Nick Wesselman for just about 6 months now. I always like to announce that these are for you guys, so we're always looking for people to come speak and present on things. We just happened to get lucky, and Mike had a PowerShell presentation ready to go, so we're thankful for Mike coming tonight. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Hanson Dodge Creative, for supplying the space, and I believe they were responsible for the drink as well. So, and then the big sponsor tonight is Coveo. You're eating and drinking on their dime. Marie Michelle from Coveo back there. I don't know if you want to come up and just say a little bit about Coveo. Come on in.
Thank you. Is it working? All right, good. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for having us. Very pleased to be with you guys tonight. Myself, Marie-Michelle Caron, I oversee our global alliance with Sitecore. So I've been involved in the Sitecore world for almost 3 years now. So very happy to be with you guys tonight. Anthony Dumas is my colleague here. He's our newbie, I guess, in the Sitecore world. He joined you've been with Coveo for almost 3 years, but he's now dedicated to supporting any sales cycle, any partner. He's acting as their, the sales manager for any Sitecore opportunity, Coveo Sitecore opportunity. So yeah, very pleased to be with you guys tonight. I understand some of you were asking if we were going to do some sort of presentation on Coveo Search and the native integration we've built with the Sitecore search provider starting in version 7. I know some of you and most of you have worked with the Coveo product probably in the past few years, and it has evolved a lot. We don't have anything planned tonight. What I suggest maybe in the future, I can come back with our product manager. It would be much more capable of doing such presentation than myself. I go to the first layer, and then you guys would probably want to go to the layer number 10. So maybe not the right person, but yeah. So big announcement that we've made at the symposium last September: a free edition of our Coveo for Sitecore integration. If you guys haven't taken a look at it yet, I strongly recommend you go ahead and download it. It's very easily, you can access it by going on our website, coveo.com/Sitecore. There's a download button, and you can have it. So yeah, we're here all night. Happy to answer any of your questions, and if you guys need to separate conversation, on short term on the product, it can also be organized remotely. So thank you.
Thank you. So we have 2 presenters tonight. As I hinted, we have Mike Reynolds. Mike Reynolds is Sitecore MVP, technical architect here at Hanson Dodge Creative. How long have you been doing Sitecore, Mike? What was the first version you worked on? 5.2. So Mike's been working on it for quite a while. We also have Adam Brower, wicked smart developer from Active Commerce. Yeah, Mike can do the Boston accent better than I can. Senior product engineer with Active Commerce, both going to present on Sitecore Power Extensions. So I'll hand it over to Mike.
Hey guys, I'm Mike Reynolds. Hey guys, I'm Mike Reynolds. I work here at Hanson Dodge doing some Sitecore stuff. You may have seen me lurking around on Twitter. Maybe, I do tell people that I never use Twitter, but, I guess it's a little bit of an addiction, right, Nick? Mm-hmm. Yeah, can't get away from it. But anyways, yeah, I'm here to talk about Sitecore Powershell Extensions. It's pretty much something that I'm pretty passionate about. It's definitely something that I like to share a lot. I've done at least 5 presentations on this module because, well, I think it's something that devs should know about to get your jobs done pretty fast. So let's jump into this. So pretty much, what is this all about? So really, it's all about saving time. So Alistair Denny's back at Symposium in 2012 in Australia pretty much just like coined this perfectly. Scripting saves time. And in the context, he was talking about scripting overall with, especially with his module, which is Revolver, which is out in the marketplace, if you want to take a look at that. But also, also on Sitecore Powershell Extensions, which really was an idea that came from Revolver. So we owe a lot to Alistair Denny's for this module and the idea behind it. So how do we save time? Well, you can do bulk item updates pretty fast on this thing. You pretty much can just write a really quick script and click, the execute button or do Control E or whatever. I'll show all that, and boom, you update a bunch of items, in one go. Pretty powerful stuff. The other thing is you can write code with, pretty quickly, and I pretty much, put relatively, in, parentheses because, if you're new to PowerShell, of course, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but, the good news is you can also do just basic .NET inside of this because PowerShell is a .NET language. You don't have to do any code deploys, pretty much. And I say typically because, and there is a little seam into this module where you can build your own custom commandlets in .NET in C#, where you would have to do, a code build. And I'm hoping to show that. But typically, you're just writing scripts, and boom, you just throw it out there and run it, and make magic happen. So why should we care about this? Well, saving time saves us and makes us money. I mean, that's really the point of this whole thing. We want to kind of curtail the development time to get things done, within budget or even under budget. And if you do that, not only will your PMs love you, your boss will love you. So that's the goal of this whole scripting thing. But Mike, why can't I just use a standalone, web form or an ASPX page? Well, seriously, it's not 2005 anymore. It's really time to, step it up, take advantage of new technologies, try to, look for efficiencies, and just get it done, And definitely, don't just do it in a haphazard way, definitely do it in a smart way. But seriously, if you do it as a standalone ASPX, it's going to take a while. You're going to have to build it. You're going to have to put it out there. You're going to have to run it. You might have to wait a while. And then, you're going to have to remove it if it's just a one-off job. So really, this is where I think, PowerShell bridges the gap between that, in the past to today in the future. So let me tell you a little bit about Sitecore Powershell Extensions, also known as SPE. It was built by Adam Najmanovich, who is a Sitecore MVP at Cognified, with offices in London and Kazan in Poland. Adam is in Poland, and he's actually watching this right now, and hopefully I don't mess up because I'll hear about it later. There have been significant contributions by Sitecore MVP Michael West. He works for a Sitecore client in Texas. He's also on this Hangout watching, and I better not say anything bad. And, I may have added a couple things, but terms and conditions apply, and, you may have to talk to my legal department, if anything goes wrong, but that's a joke. So, I mean, this module is open source. Pretty much, you can get it for free. You can actually go grab it on GitHub. You can download it. You can change things on it. You can fork it. You can contribute back to it. But I'm going to talk about a different concept after, that we're going to do moving forward on this module, about adding things to it, that you can put up in the marketplace without having to change the core. It gives you PowerShell inside of Sitecore. So pretty much, whatever's there on your local Windows machine, inside of PowerShell, you can just run that inside of Sitecore. And then, of course, you have access to the Sitecore API, because really this is built on .NET, and then all the DLLs are there for you because you're inside of the, Sitecore admin, and you can do things with it. And then we have, some commandlets out of the box that you can run that really wrap some of the Sitecore API. And, you can do some pretty powerful things with this. So what can you do with this? Well, like I mentioned before, you can do, bulk item updates, Sitecore items. Pretty much that involves, just writing a script, running it, and, hopefully magic happens, at least the way you want it to happen. You can leverage some out of the, box reports, and, you can also create your own, like I mentioned here. But really, there's a lot of other things that are out of the box that really you can leverage that I'll try to go over, fairly quickly. Hopefully not too quick, but you can, there's integration points where you can actually launch scripts inside of the item context menu. So you can actually add your own, you can, write a little script, and you can launch that there to do manipulations on the item or all of its descendants. And you can also use PowerShell scripts inside of scheduled tasks, using the task manager. But really, there's a lot more you can do with this module. And I'm just like touching the iceberg here. And hopefully I'll give you a good survey of what you can do, but I'm not going to cover everything because we'd be here for about 5 hours. So let's take a look. My session might have died. No, it did not. So here we go. We have a nice, I say vanilla instance of Sitecore 8. I think the latest that's out there on SDN. Definitely recommend going out and getting it, taking a look. There's a lot of cool things in here. But with Sitecore Powershell Extensions, it's pretty much you just install it as a regular package. There's nothing special you have to do. You just install it, you wait for it to finish, you restart the client, and boom, you're empowered. You can start working with it right away. Pretty easy. Everything's there. So, on first look, you get a bunch of stuff that comes with this. So, out of the box, you get some reporting tools. So these are out-of-the-box reports that come with the module. You can check out, things like, do I have any domain conflicts, on my current instance, things like that. You can look at, hey, what is anything broken? Broken links report is here and things like that. Or, any items that are locked, how do I deal with that? Things like that. Solution audit. So you have a lot of things here that you can run as reports to see, hey, I may have some problems in some of my items inside of my instance. So for instance, you can say, okay, I'm going to run this guy right here, limit number of items under any given node. I'll do this. Let's pick my home page. Or even better, let's pick this guy right here. Let's say 20. Oh, that's interesting. So make pretend you didn't see that. I'm not sure if I used that right. It could be user error. It probably is. Anyways, let's show another report really quickly. So media audit. So how many of you have had problems with people uploading things to the media library without an alt, field set? So we have an out-of-the-box report for that. I'll give you a report to show you those. So image items with empty alt field. Click that. Boom, look at that. I have 3 images in my media library that don't have alt images. You can click on this row, it'll bring you to the item and you can see it. And then, of course, you'll see validation errors that, hey, this wasn't set. And the cool thing is this opened up the content editor in a new window, so I can go back and keep looking at things. And if I fix this guy, save him, I'm going to have to run that report again. There we go, we're down to 2. So these guys have issues on them. What else do you get out of the box here? You get the PowerShell toolbox here. Pretty much these are kind of like just like things, scripts that you want to reuse, as like a utility to do things. Here we have some things about, what's running in the background in PowerShell extensions, because we have some things, running. We put things in session and things like that. It looks like you can create a site from a sitemap. I haven't tested this, but that definitely seems pretty powerful. And as I said earlier, you can add to all of this. What else do we have? So before I go forward, I just want to show you. Let's make pretend we're building a site for a client that sells costumes for cats. So here we go, you got cats and costumes and things like that, but it looks like somebody added some tokens to standard values on the template after the fact, and you're like, oh man, what do I do about this? But anyways, we'll get to that and how to fix that, but just want to show the context here. We have a nice out-of-the-box site that I set up here quickly with a bunch of pages in it, and pretty much a marquee that's doing some fancy stuff like that, Yeah, some really cutting-edge HTML going on in this instance. I guess the front-end guys are being kind of creative about this. Anyways, so let me show you some other things that are offered out of the box that you can do pretty cool on here. Look at that, that's kind of freaky. Let's do that. So I can go in here, right-click to the context menu, go to scripts, and I see that I have things that I can do here. So packaging. I can start a new package right here on the fly. Start this new package. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to say, okay, I want to add this whole branch. And, you know, there are 25 items underneath this parent page. I'm just going to add them. I'm going to go over here and add just this one item here. I'm going to say add item to package. It's running.
It's a big page.
Right. Let's kill that for a second. Anyways, let's continue, and then I can just click download and download that. Well, typically this only takes about 2 seconds. So something might be wrong in my local instance for some reason. I tested this last night, so it was working, but I'm just going to move on. Pretty much you would just be prompted to download it, and you would just download it to your downloads folders, and you can do whatever you want to do with it. What else can we do with this? So there's also the ability to copy layouts, which I don't have enabled here because I don't think I have any presentation on my local items. But you can sit there and you can copy renderings from one item to another just by using that item context menu. Pretty powerful stuff here. But you know, also out of the box, you get the PowerShell console. This is kind of like what you get with Windows. You know, so in Windows you can just log into the Windows console and start typing things like it's in Unix and things like that. Now, I don't use this myself. I'm wondering if my session died because things are just not loading. Hold on. Just give me a second. Yeah, it might be, actually. So just give me 1 second, guys. I'm just going to kill this. Can I just reset? So the only time I ever use the command line is to drop the DOS to do something like this. That's why I don't use the console. I want to show you another thing that's out of the box. It's actually pretty cool. My my command line days are kind of over, so, you know, except for this. The demo gods are not faring in my favor here.
Is this available for 7.2 or just 8?
It's available from, I think, 6.4.1 all the way up. It might even be before 6.4.1. I don't remember. But yeah, it was on 6, and I know that there's versions out there in the marketplace for at least 6.6 all the way up. The build I have is actually not out on the marketplace yet. It's actually a newer build. It will be available soon. And there's all kinds of cool things that are in this versus the older versions that, you know, I'd like to show if this works. Okay. Let's try that again. There we go. So this is what the PowerShell console looks like. It's pretty much like dropping a DOS, or if you're a Linux fan, it's like being in Linux. You can do things in here, and then you can do tab to complete things. So you can do things like that. You can scroll up and down for your history and things like that. I'm not a command line guy anymore, so I don't use this anymore, but it's there if you really want to play with this. You can do some pretty cool things in here, but I don't know how. What I like to use is something called the integrated scripting environment. You know, so the ISC, in other words. So pretty much this is under development tools here in the Sitecore start menu, PowerShell ISC. You get a nice dialogue like this with text box to type things in here. Those are commandlets. Here you have the ability to save scripts to your library and things like that. You can execute them in things. One thing what I want to show is that inside of PowerShell, I just want to bring up a really important PowerShell concept here. I'm going to bring these over here. I cheated. I'm not going to write this from scratch. Comment this out. So in PowerShell, all commandlets start with a verb, and they have a hyphen with a noun. So out of the box, you get this thing called get verb. This is in Windows PowerShell as well. I want to let you know some of these commands are coming from Windows PowerShell, and they're being offered inside of the ISC, inside of Sitecore. So I can actually do this guy, and I can click execute. And it'll give me all the verbs that are available to me for all the commands that are loaded inside of this instance. At first glance, it might not be useful, but it might help you with this next command here. So I can get a list of commands that use a certain verb. I can do, get command, verb, get, click execute. And here's all the commands that are available to me for that. I can do, the other cool thing I can do with this is I can do, get rid of that, and I can do control enter, and get some help associated with this command. If the person who developed this, did their due diligence, they would put a lot of information in here. Sometimes you're not going to see things, Some of this was built by Microsoft, some of it was built by us. We've done as much as we possibly can, to put some helper stuff in here and written a bunch of logs and things like that. But you want to get out of here, you can click that, or you can do escape. What else can you do with this? You can do... I can go this and do control enter. I have IntelliSense. I can search for things, that start with whatever text I put in here. So I can do, get content. What does this do? Oh, let's look it up. Oh, cool. Things like that. I mean, you have this ability in here. So I always like showing this first, because if you're in doubt, you can use things that are here, right out of the box to look for things. So, I mean, let's get more Sitecore specific about this. So I wrote a script here to show you that you can just create a Sitecore item on the fly and set fields on it. All right, so let me minimize this a bit. So what am I doing here? So we have a commandlet called new item that will create a new item. You pass in the template path and the name of the item. And then I'm taking that item and I'm passing it, I'm piping this. So you can pipe things inside of PowerShell. You can pipe a collection, you can pipe an item, things like that. And then here we're just saying we're piping this here, and I want to actually update the title field on that item with this text. And I want to set this as hi. And then here I'm grabbing an item from the media library. I'm actually putting the item in editing mode, and I'm setting that on an image field on the item. And then boom, it's going to save it. But before I should do that, I probably should serialize my content tree, because I'm going to need some of this stuff moving forward. So I didn't want to jump ahead, but I'm going to have to here. So pretty much this can leverage the serialization framework inside of Sitecore. We can create .item files. For those who have used TDS or Synthesis or things like that that are out there in in the Sitecore world, it uses the .item files in the serialization framework inside of Sitecore. And this will just serialize it to my file system so I can restore it later on at a certain point. So I'm going to execute that. So I'm basically just grabbing everything, my home item, with all the sentence, and serializing them onto my file system. And those actually live in here. You guys will recognize this if you look inside of a TDS project. You see .item files. TDS leverages this. So I want to jump back to the script I was talking about a minute ago. So I'm going to run this. So just to confirm, I want to show you that there is no item called mic test under home. See, you got cat page 1 through 5. Shortcut for execute is Control E, so I'm going to do Control E. True means something good happened. Hopefully it's good for us. I'll refresh this guy. Here we go. We have an item called mic test. Set an image on there. Here's my awesome title, my subtitle for mic test, things like that. Look at that. I put hi inside of a rich text field, and I had some tokens on standard values for this template, and it expanded them. But Powershell didn't do that. Sitecore did, but since we created a new item. So, you can create items, but you can also delete items as well. I'll go back here. So I'm basically going to remove the item we just created. I'm just going to specify the path. Control E. Something happened. If there were a problem, you would see an exception inside of this area right here. It'll be in red. It's going to be screaming at you, hey, there's a problem. So you'll know if there's an issue. So if I do a refresh on this guy, it's gone. All right. What else can you do? Well, you guys have used cloning inside of Sitecore, right? You guys are familiar with that. Well, you can do that here. We have a out-of-the-box commandlet that gives you that capability. I'm just going to show you the script real quickly and run through it. So I'm going to grab cat page 4. And my destination will be a folder called clones, which is this guy right here. So I'm going to grab him. I'm going to clone him inside of there. So I got my item that I want to clone. I have the destination, and I want to clone that item, which is this guy right here, to this destination recursively. So that means grab everything in the branch and clone it over there. And execute that guy. It's going to take a minute. All right, so we return back the actual clone. So this is actually not the original item. This is actually the cloned item. I'm thinking maybe we should put the path in here so that people can really see that. But if we go here and we do a refresh on this guy, we can see that something happened. And you know it's a clone because this field right here is set. Only clones have that. And this is pretty much pointing back to its, I guess, parent or master item. So I'm going to delete this guy. And it did it for all the sub-items as well. Just going to delete these guys because we don't need them anymore. I just wanted to show you that you have the capabilities of cloning items inside of Sitecore Powershell Extensions. I already talked about serialization real quickly. Yeah, so since we have that in place, I'm actually going to manipulate some more items. All right, so what are we doing here? So setting a path, because I'm going to reuse this variable. So this is how you define a variable inside of PowerShell. It's pretty much just $, whatever the name of the thing is. It's a, behind the scenes there's some types going on, but really it's a, it doesn't really care about types. It figures it out on the fly. So I'm grabbing, the current item. I'm grabbing the item that's, defined by path, and I'm grabbing all of its children. And this R right here is recursive. You can also put in recursive, but I did R as like a shortcut here. And I'm putting this guy inside of an array. So this @ means I want this guy to be an array because it's not really returning an array, this command. It's only returning one item. This guy already returns a collection, an array. And so I'm concatenating 2 arrays together to make a bigger collection. And I'm piping that into here to update some fields on every single item that is in this collection that I'm gathering here. So what am I doing? I'm setting the title field to be hi, I'm a title, and the subtitle to be something else. So let's run that, and it's going to do everything. So it's a good thing I made a backup using serialization, because we need the rest, what we have in place now for the rest of the presentation. But boom, execute. It's going to take a while because there are a bunch of pages. Just go here. Hi, I'm a title. I am a subtitle, things like that. And I can do it going down. We can see that it was set for all of them. So that's pretty much, that's a bulk item update right there. Just really 2 lines of code, boom, done. So, this module is a powerful tool. definitely be smart about it. Don't randomly start updating things like this without really either vetting it with somebody else. It's always good to have a pair, or definitely test it a million times. But then on the other side, you save a lot of time doing things if you have to. So I'm going to actually put back what I had using, I'm going to deserialize what I put in the file system back in. All right, so what's going on here? So I'm calling deserialize item, which is a command out of the module. I'm pretty much specifying the path on my file system of where all of my .item files live, and then the root, which is another parameter that's required recursively for all of them in there. And I'm doing this force update. I probably don't need that. It's going to work without it, but I'm paranoid and I want to make sure things actually fully work. So this will actually force it to update it no matter what. So I'm going to run that guy. Okay, boom, something happened. So if we go back here, look at that. We have what we had in place before on the home item as well. Just click around and verify it a little bit more. Good. All right, seems like it worked. That's good. All right, so then you're thinking, all right, you're just like writing scripts to like update items in the content tree, whatever. Show me some really cool things. So I want to introduce a concept that came out with this new version of Sitecore Powershell Extensions. It's pretty much all about building modules that you can actually wrap up yourself in this module and upload them to the Sitecore Marketplace. So what we did here is we created something called modules. New module. And look at that. I can name my module. So I'm going to call it, I don't know, let's call it Sitecore UG module, Sitecore user group module, right? And look at that. I can enable it, disable it. So if it's not enabled, it won't work, of course. If it's enabled, well, magical things will happen when you write scripts inside of your integration points, which are these guys. So pretty much you have the ability to add things to the item context menu. We're going to do that. You can add gutters for your items. You can put things in the ribbon, and you got all these other things. You can even tap into like the login in pipeline. I mean, there's so many things you can do with this. I'm going to add these because these are the ones that I've prepared. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Control panel, you can put things inside of the Sitecore control panel. There's some pretty powerful things. Creating shared functions. I might as well do that too. So you proceed. Done. Green means good. So we do that. So what did that just do? So let's go to the actual content tree and go into System, Modules. So the PowerShell extension stuff lives inside of here. And there's some things that are out of the box for settings and things like that. But you also have your libraries here. So these here, you have example modules that you can look at to model your scripts after. This icon means that it's not enabled, and this icon means it's enabled. That's pretty much all driven by a checkbox field right here. So you can even enable your module in here if you wanted to. There's nothing magical going on inside of the ISE. It's all driven by this one checkbox. You can go in here and you can look at an example of a gutter. There's one gutter in here. Came up a blog post from a Sitecore MVP who is over in the Netherlands. We gave him creds here, of course. I'm not going to go through that, but there's other things, how to add things to the ribbon up here. There's a lot of things here. And the one thing I want to show is getting started. So this is pretty much, the first thing you want to look at when you want to start building things. Go to the getting started thing and take a look at what's available there. It's pretty much just like tutorial things to get, up and running on this, to build things, to, get, things running in your local instance, or even, to impress your boss. So we created a Sitecore UG module, and we have some integration points that we call them. So, we have the ability to add things to the context menu and, for the items, gutters, functions, reports, and things like that. It just creates these items, as places to save your scripts. And I'm going to go in here. And I just want to mention, lately I've had item buckets on my mind a lot. And I've been having a little bit of fun with that. So I decided to write a couple scripts that will be run in the item context menu for bucketing and unbucketing because I think buckets are pretty cool. So I'm going to just, put this first one in first before we do the other one. So pretty much this guy is all about bucketing. So, one thing to notice, you can specify notes here that can be dragged into helper text documentation inside of the module, and I guess even PowerShell in general. But you can give it a name, the name of your thing, what it does, and notes, who wrote the notes. I guess I did right here. If this is off, don't yell at me. So what are we doing here? We're grabbing the context item, which is specified by a dot. And you can specify the context up here if you wanted to, but really, in this context, no pun intended, this context is about the context menu. So we're grabbing the item that we're doing a right click on, and that's this guy right here. Put him in this variable. I'm checking the isBucket checkbox. So on Sitecore items, on standard, the standard template, one of the standard fields is isBucket, which is really what drives the bucketing feature in Sitecore. So what I'm doing here is it's a checkbox field, and I'm checking if the value is equal to 1, which means it's checked. I know that might be a little weird, if you're used to C# and you're seeing things like that. You're like, oh, that's magical strings, I don't like it, blah, blah, blah. We're talking about actually having the ability to put something like this in here that will also resolve for checkbox fields. But it's not there yet, but we're hoping to have that to support both. So I'm going to leave that as is. So what am I doing? If the item's already a bucket, I don't want to do anything, so I'm doing a return. I'm just like leaving this, script gracefully. Otherwise, I'm grabbing all descendants recursively, and I'm setting their bucketable field to be true, because you can't bucket an item unless it's bucketable. Usually, you'd want to do that on the actual standard values of the template, but in this case, I'm doing it on the item, per item basis, or descendants, You'd have to really think about whether you want to do that. It may not be a good idea. You might want to do it at the standard values level, but I didn't do that here. And what am I doing here? I'm grabbing all those guys, and I'm doing that. I'm updating that. And then we have a command here called invoke shell command. So what that does, it actually will call the share UI framework here to send a command. And it runs behind the scenes, and magical things happen. It uses the command manager class, which I'm not going to talk about. But so this is the name of the command I want to run. This actually came from the actual ribbon for bucketing. I just grabbed that from core. Nothing crazy here. And this, share UI. Let's talk about share UI. And this is, I'll talk about it real quickly. So share UI is pretty much everything that drives this right here. This whole thing right here is share. Pretty much what that is a magical out-of-the-box framework to get JavaScript to work in C#. And it was built by Jakob Christensen over at Sitecore, a main architect there. He did an awesome job on this, and others have worked on it as well. But Jakob also built Speak, and Speak is better than Share UI, and it's going to replace this. So I recommend learning Speak as soon as possible, because it's going to come quickly. Anyways, I digress. Let's go back. So here, I'm invoking a share UI command, and I'm closing my window. Nothing crazy, right? It's a good thing I put the name in here, because that's what I'm going to name my script. I'm going to do a save as, and this is for the item context menu. I'm going to put it under our Sitecore UG module. Put it in here. Boom. Awesome. So I'm not going to go show that yet. I want to show, so we have the ability to bucket items. We may want to unbucket them. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to grab this other guy here. Pretty much this is just running in reverse, although I just want to point out one thing. Just going to copy this real quickly because I'm going to need that. Grabbing the context item. If it's not a bucket, we get out of here because we don't want to convert a regular item back to a regular item. That'd be kind of weird. This means not equal to. That's what that specifies. The EQ is equal to. That's pretty much how you can do equality check and things like that, or not equals check. And I'm just going to call the unbucket command for unbucketing an item, and then close window. Save that guy. And put this guy in here, just like the other guy. down here. So I save that. Cool. All right, so let's go over here real quickly. To do here, go like this. Look at that, we have our two things here. Now that might not be ideal because you don't want to like have the ability to bucket and unbucket at the same time. It doesn't make sense, right? Well, we have an app for that. So I can go over here. Uh-oh. Power went out. Anyways, we can go over here, and I actually can set rules on this using the rules engine for whether something should show up or not. So this is for convert to a regular item. So I'm going to say, okay, fields, where a specific field is empty. Actually, we don't want it to be empty. Let's get rid of that real quickly, sorry. Where it's compared, specific field compares to a specific value. So we want it to be this guy. Trust me, this actually is the field name, is bucket, right? Compares to, or is equal to, and it looks like this did not deconclusive to me, so let's try this quickly. And then I'm going to expand that again. And I'm going to do where it's equal to 1. We want to unbucket things when this is set to 1, which, true. Do that. Do OK. I'm going to save that guy. Now let's do it for the item bucket guy. So this is a little tricky. So when something hasn't been a bucket before, the isBucket field is empty. But if it was a bucket before and was unbucketed, it becomes 0. So we have to actually do 2 checks here, where it's either empty or it's equal to a certain value. And I'm going to change this and to an or. And let's do it for both of these guys. Is bucket. I'll copy that because I'm going to reuse it. And let's do it here. Compares to is equal to. Let's minus that quickly. And I'm going to do that 0. Save that guy. Let me make this bigger so you can see it. So I know I can't. I need glasses. But let's go over here. And if I played my cards right here, which I hope I did, we can see that, oh, this guy is not a bucket, right? And we can verify that on standard fields down here. If we can find him, I probably could use this guy to help me. Not that guy, this guy. Item bucket is bucket. So he's set to false, which is cool. That's what we want. So let's run this guy and see what happens. I get a dialog. What do I do? Oh, okay. All right, something happened. Ah, look at that. It's a bucket. And everything that was in it was moved. That's cool, right? All right, let's say I made a mistake and I want to change that back. Well, hopefully our context menu item is there for unbucketing. Convert it to a regular item. Let's run that guy. Dialog to make sure we want to do what we want to do. Say OK. And this takes a minute because it's actually running some commands behind the scenes in a pipeline. So if I did that really fast, you would see things moving around and stuff like that. But I waited, so everything's now back to where it was, which is cool. That's exactly what we wanted. All right. So what else can you do? Well, I promise that you can actually add gutters. You guys are familiar with gutters, right? You can right-click right here, and you can see things here. I want to see things where, something's an item bucket. We don't have any because we just removed it. Cloned items, where we removed that as well. But the point is, icons will show up here that tell you whether something meets, some item meets a certain criteria, and that will be denoted by the gutter. So I'm going to shut these gutters off real quickly, and I'm going to actually add a new gutter. So I'm going to take this guy and copy this real quickly. So what am I doing? I'm grabbing the context item right here, and I'm creating a new gutter object, use a new object. This is kind of like doing a constructor in C#. I'm looking for items that have more than 20 sub-items underneath them. And I'm not looking recursively. I'm just looking at the next level down, children. If it does, I want to show a certain icon. So I'm going to show the big X that you see in the icon library. If it has 20 or less, I'm going to do a check mark, a big green check mark you have seen in when selecting icons for on your templates. And then basically this, I'm just rendering it out. Pretty much when you have a variable like that, it's going to output it. That's all it does. You can do that, and if something's serializable, you'll see something down here. But I'm not going to run this in here. I'm going to save it into our little integration point for making a gutter. So we have a nice little thing here called gutters. I'm going to save it in there. I save the name, do select. So we save that guy. One thing that you need to know about, adding things to the ribbon or to the gutter is you have to go to settings, and you have to do a rebuild. You can rebuild certain things. You can rebuild things for the actual ribbon or the gutter or everything. Since we already did the gutter, I'm just going to run this guy. So that ran, right? So if we go over here and I do a refresh, here's our new gutter script. Item has 20 or more sub-items. If I run that guy, well, look, this guy has 25 sub-items here. See, 25, but everybody else has less. I think everybody has like 10. But, you can keep drilling down to see things. So that's pretty much how to add a gutter here inside of the module. It's pretty powerful stuff because, if you have to do it I'm not going to say old-fashioned way, but the C# way, you're going to have to write a class to do that. You're going to have to set it in core. You're going to have some kind of integration point in the config file. You have to put that out there. You have to test it. And that's going to require a build. So the point is here, you can do things without having to build, and it magically just starts working. All right, let's talk about custom reports. So I'm going to steal this here. So everybody knows I love tokens because I like to talk about them a lot. I even blogged about them in a bunch of different ways, even outside of this module. But so here I'm creating a report that will tell me which items have tokens in any field, and that includes standard fields. So let me just step through this real quickly. So let me shut this off real quickly. Sorry. So everybody knows what a token is, right? Or a Sitecore variable. It's this $ name. So when you create a new item, it's going to expand that with the item name. There's another one there. Name says meow. You have date, which will give you the date right now. You can do your parent name. You can do parent ID. There are others as well. I'm not going to go into them all. They're in the master variables replacer class in Sitecore.data inside of Sitecore.kernel. You can go take a look and check them out. But pretty much, let's say you have an item out here and you add a new field to it and somebody puts a token in standard values, it's going to bleed into the items that already exist. And so people either are going to have to go out there and manually change them, or you can write something to do that. But first, before you start writing stuff to do that, you kind of want to have a content audit to see what has problems. So that's what this report does. I basically want to grab all items that have tokens in any field here. And I'm going to do it under the content tree. So I'm going to say where, get child items underneath here recursively where it has unexpanded tokens. And this is just calling this function here. And we're passing in a parameter for item. And I hard-coded these because there's no way to actually grab that from the master variables replacer class in Sitecore. So I had to put it in here. It'd be a lot better to actually put that somewhere. Yeah. Does that look good? All right, no problem. So I'm just looking for these guys right here. I think I actually copied and pasted these from the master variables replacer class. But so what are we doing? I have my item. I'm actually calling read all fields because this will read things from the standard template. You may not get everything if you don't do that. So that's why I'm calling that. I'm iterating over all fields, then I'm iterating over all tokens. And there's probably a much more efficient way of doing this. I'm just doing this quickly. I have 2 loops here, so it's probably not the most efficient thing. And then I just, see whether the value contains a token, in this list. If it does, return true, otherwise return false. And so that's what this guy calls, and we grab a collection of those items here. If we have, at least one or more, we're building up a way to show a dialogue with the items, inside of our report that have tokens on them. So I'm creating this props instance, which pretty much defines, things for our modal. So a title of the modal, some information about the modal, how many pages you want to show in our report in the modal. And then I'm taking the items that were found and I'm passing them to the show list view command, which actually loads a modal that comes from Share UI. And then I'm setting the columns that show up in my report here and mapping them to the fields on the items here. If there are none, I show an alert saying, oh, there are no items with unexpanded tokens, everything's cool. And then we close window here. So I'm going to actually save this guy to our reporting library. I'm going to do reports here, boom. So magically, that should show up, and I have to zoom out for a second. There we go, items with unexpanded tokens and fields. This pretty much should give me everything inside of my content area because we saw some tokens on fields. So here we go. It gives me a list of those guys, and I can actually go to the next page doing that, previous next, go to last page, first page, things like that. So, here are the columns that we specified inside of the script, and here's a nice icon that's associated with that. I can click on this row and go there. It sends me to the item that has problems. And then we keep an open dialogue of the report. So you can keep going there and you can fix it. Now, you can say, oh, yeah, we'll just pass it off to content authors and then go fix that. But no, probably don't want to do that. So what can you do? Well, we can create a toolbox utility to fix all those tokens.
So on that report, it looks like you can export as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, so you have the ability to export to CSV, Excel, HTML, JSON. If you want to mess around with some JavaScript with this, even XML, if you want to do it. I guess it depends on what you need to do. I will say you can add things to this, but you're gonna have to build things to make it work. I think these are all driven by scripts as well. So just to keep that in the back of your mind. If you want to build a module, you can extend this. So I'm gonna show how to fix those using the toolbox utility, which is this guy right here, like I showed earlier, when I add to this. So what are we doing here? Let me just steal this real quickly. I'm grabbing all descendants under the content node, and I'm actually going over all these guys, and I want to do read all because I want to make sure I get everything from standard values, so standard template. Really, well, it's the standard values tokens that come from the standard fields. And then I'm going to pipe them into this that comes out of the box with Sitecore Powershell Extensions, which will expand the tokens on the items that are passed into it. So I'm going to save that guy. Save it in here. Go back in here. So just to show you again, we have tokens in here. We have a token in here. That's weird looking. And then we have more tokens in here. I do this. We have our new toolbox utility. And if I click on that guy, something happened. So just look at that. And if we click this guy, they were expanded. That was expanded. That was expanded. That's weird looking. That was all these guys were expanded. So yeah, you have the ability to do some pretty powerful things in here if you had to. Now I'm just showing just like really quick examples. Really, the world is your stage. You can do what you want with this thing. You can do a lot. So what else can you do? Well, you can create scheduled tasks as well. So go in here, and this one's a little involved. I'm going to show you what I did here. So pretty much what I'm doing here is I want to clear the HTML cache for all non-system websites inside of your Sitecore instance. So that's the goal of this particular scheduled task here. And let's say, this is all like facetious. I mean, you probably never want to do this, but let's say you needed to clear the cache like once a minute, which we're going to do here, but once an hour, whatever. Really, it should clear after you publish, which it does out of the box, but I'm just making up an example here. So what are we doing? I want to grab site names that are non-system sites. So I basically, hard coded these quickly. You probably wouldn't want to do something like this, but I'm just doing it here as an example. These are the system sites I don't want to touch. So pretty much in my instance, the only one I'm going to touch is website. That's the one that we're working, that we really care about for, public-facing websites up in this instance here. I mean, you might have a multi-site solution, and you got to do what you got to do. So I have those. I'm grabbing site names from the factory, Sitecore configuration factory helper. I'm grabbing those, and I'm basically grabbing all of those where they aren't inside of this collection, and I'm returning them to the caller. And then I have another function here, and I'm basically, processing a site name that is either, if it's null or if it's empty string, we just return null. Otherwise, we grab the actual site info object from the Sitecore configuration factory helper class. This process means that I can pipe in multiple items into this function. That's all that means. So if multiple are piped in, I want to process them all, individually one by one. That's all that means. I had to Google this the other day, by the way. I just learned about this myself. And then we have another function that will take in a site info object. And basically, if it's an null, we get out of there. But we actually will clear the HTML cache on it using the HTML cache property on the site info instance. And the same thing, I'm processing them all one by one inside of this process block. And then I just pipe everything together. So the first function we saw, give me the site names that are not system sites, give me their site info instances, and clear the cache. And then we have a command here to actually write to the Sitecore log to show you, oh, hey, we did something. So we're doing a cache clear on, this guy here. Adam Naimanovich showed me this the other night, and I actually was like, wow, I didn't know you could do this. This is like an eval in JavaScript. I'm passing in this guy here. This denotes the current guy being processed, and I'm grabbing the name property on it. And this is basically put it in here without having to do a string.format. That's what that's doing. So I'm going to save this guy, and I'm not sure if I set up my frequency stuff in the web config to be, conducive to this, because I think I wanted to do this every minute, and I think we're out of time, but I'm just going to quickly show that, you can save it here. I'm not going to show this running and things like that, but apparently, oh, sorry, wrong place. You actually want to set this up inside of where you set up your scheduled tasks. So out of the box, you give him this command to run. What this guy does is he basically passes in a command to a method defined here, which is update, and runs a PowerShell script inside of it. You don't ever want to touch this guy. You actually want to add a schedule here. And, let's create a new schedule. I want to show one quick thing. Clear cache. And I think I do want to save this guy. I'm going to save this guy to the shared functions library real quickly. Right? Do that. I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to grab his path. Oops. Modules. So, script library, shared functions on Sitecore UG. I'll grab this item path real quickly, because we're going to need it here. So here, you can specify your command, which is the PowerShell script command. You want to pass in the path of your script here. I'm going to save it real quickly. And then out of the box, you right-click scripts, and you can edit task schedule. So instead of having to deal with magical strings over in this object, you can actually specify the dates you want this thing to run, when you want it to stop running, and you can say what days you want it to run. And then down here, you want to say how often you want it to run. So, I could do something like, I can do something like this. I can do there one, and that will run every minute. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and I can't show this right into the log. oops, to save, yes. And then it basically, you know, it looks like it didn't save here, but if I did it right, this is user error, by the way, it would save the value in here of when it should run. All right, so let me do from current slide. So definitely there's a lot of stuff out there that you can learn more about this module. You can go download it on the marketplace, and there's some documentation out there, you know, for some quick things. But you basically can download the package there. There's a link to GitHub, so you can go look at the source code. And, Adam Naimonovich came up with an awesome page, I think on his blog, cataloging every single internet resource out there. A lot of Nick Wesselman stuff is out there, linked. You know, so if you have any problems, you can go find them in the back of the room right there. And Michael West created a bunch of intro videos on YouTube. I think a series of like at least 10, probably it's a lot more. I found them very helpful when I was actually learning this stuff, you know, when I first took a look at it. Definitely get in touch if you guys have any questions or recommendations on making this better, or, you know, even like if you need help, you know, reach out to us. You know, here are our blogs. You know, we blogged a bunch about this stuff. I have a category called Powershell that you can go find things, but, you know, Adam has a lot of stuff out there on this, and so does Michael. The best way to get in touch with all of us is on Twitter, because I think we're Twitter addicts. But, you know, definitely you can find me here if you need to, you know, really hunt me down. But does anybody have any questions? Oh, yeah, we could do that. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I think I'm good. Can you all hear me? Go get a beer, another piece of pizza. Yeah. So Mike kind of gave you the rundown of the PowerShell module as a whole, and they kind of asked me to come in and show some real world examples. So that's kind of what I'm going to do. So these are examples of a specific client that we had that had certain business needs that PowerShell we found solved everything that they needed, and it was really quick to do all this stuff. So kind of like Mike was saying, it saves time, saves money. So I'm going to run through those examples. So the first one was, this is an e-commerce client, and they have a massive product repository. How massive is it? Thanks for asking, Chad. Probably, I'd say, I think 20,000 was it? So 20,000 items in a tree structure. So imagine kind of having to deal with that on a day-to-day basis if you're a content author or a product manager. How do I get rid of that?
Click on the, just clicking on the remote desktop icon there next to site. Going with the Microsoft logo.
Oh, there you go.
You good?
Oh. I'll just resize my screen. Okay. we go. Problem solved. So 20,000 items in a tree, and they were having a lot of content issues with just the integrity of the data. So just trying to find products that were hidden or missing certain fields. If you can imagine having to sift through 20,000 items in Sitecore, not ideal and not really in the best interest of time use. So,
And what product are they using to drive their e-commerce on
oh, I'm glad you asked, Nick. Active Commerce is what they're using. So what we did was added a ribbon. I think these are called what are these called? Anyway, a custom ribbon control that kind of has all the audit tasks for them, and it's context sensitive, so it's only on the product repositories and categories. And let's just run one of these to kind of see what it does. So first thing we had to deal with is performance of PowerShell. Going over 20,000 some items is not really feasible. It'd probably take like half a day to run all that. So we had to add a lot of warnings, like, are you sure you want to do this at this level? So that's kind of what that is. So I'm just going to cancel that. So they kind of had to, usually they had to deal, they knew which category they were kind of addressing that day. So if we just go down to, I think, here's kind of a smaller one, yeah, and run. And by the way, this is not Sitecore 8, if you haven't noticed. So things are going to look a little different with the modal as well. But it's kind of all the same here. You can export, like Mike was showing, or go right to the item and fix it. So if you can imagine how we would solve this without PowerShell, it would probably be a custom ASPX page or web form that we'd run, and it'd probably either email them a CSV or something like that, and they'd have to go in and find all these things. Now they can just click and open the item directly and fix it. That flicker is really annoying. It's not just me, right?
No, it's
okay. So for them to be able to just export it and edit them directly was a huge time saver. So now let's go take a look at what that script looks like. So a little bit different place, but it's still the PowerShell ISE. And I'm going to open up the one we were just running. So there's no concept of modules. That looks kind of like a cool addition that Mike was showing. For now, it's just kind of organized all in one place. Make that a little bigger here. So not a whole lot going on. I mean, we have our check at the top, and it's just basing it on a template.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's try it. There. So you can see we're just checking the template name. And if they're selecting the entire top-level repository, just give them a warning. And you can process that result. So in this case, if they say yes, then we're going to close the window and exit. And then we're just, getting all children and recursing and piping that into, what we're looking for here. So we're just looking for a hidden a checkbox essentially. So if it's null or not equal to 1. So we're taking those results and shoving them into that show list view, which gives you that nice modal. So this alone, this show list view, seemed to be like, that was a huge win, just having that. It gave basically everything they had wanted right out of the box with PowerShell. So not really that complicated. And then to configure the ribbon, it's actually in the core database. So here's our chunk with the hidden button, and all we're doing is kicking off the PowerShell script. So if we looked at that that script that we were just looking at, that item, this is just that ID. So that's really all there is to it. And then you can specify the database as well. So that's kind of how all these are set up. So I won't really go into these. Let's look at the other reports quick. The other one we have is missing field. So this is, I'm just looking for a specific field that is missing information. So let's run that, see what that looks like. This one's a little different because it accepts user input. So here we're asking for the name of the field. So let's just try size. We're high in size, but we'll see. So it's a lot of things missing size. So same thing, we're really just using this built-in modal. Now if we take a look at the code for that, really the only difference here is we're accepting user input. The same check at the beginning, but then there's this show input command, and you can give it the text that's going to appear, and then it just returns the value that was entered. So if they don't enter anything or they hit cancel, we're just going to get out of here. And then we just have a function that is our has invalid value. We had to do a little special handling for drop link. I can't remember the reason, but it's probably there in that comment. And then we're doing the same thing. So we're just recursing through all child items and spitting our results up to show list view. Then there is validation errors. And this one's kind of odd. You might think, well, isn't that built into the tray? Because there is, this one, validation rules. Problem was 20,000 items, and there's, nested infinitely. So they'd have to expand every node. I guess we could have written a script that expands every node, but we decided to write it with the script, PowerShell script. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So first I'll just run it here. Hopefully there's something invalid. I'm sure there is. Seems like it's getting worse. So here's some invalid products. And I should be able to just, oh, that's right. For whatever reason, the open's not working right now. Don't know why, but you saw it working on Mike's example. The other thing you can do is shift or control click on items. So you could open multiple. So you could pick whatever ones you wanted to work on and click open, and it'll open all of them in a new tab. So the code for that, only interesting in the fact that it's using the Sitecore API. So here's kind of the meat of it. Has validation errors. So I had no idea how to do this. I just Googled how do I check validation errors in Sitecore, and I found a Stack Overflow that showed me how to do it in C#. The great thing is, you find that, you can do it in PowerShell. So that's kind of what I wanted to show here. So anything you do in C#, you can technically do in a PowerShell script with the Sitecore API. So that's about it for that. And the final one I had, so with their product catalog, there was a nightly process that was bringing in basically new SKUs. So they had to organize these SKUs. And many times there were either duplicates, so there was a product with a bunch of size variants. So let's say, 15 new sizes that we didn't have before are now available. And they couldn't just bring the whole product in, they wanted to grab all the variants. So before, they would have had to basically right-click, use the old copy, move to for every one of those. So here's an example. So, they had maybe, some of them had like 20. So that was kind of taking a lot of their time, just right-clicking, copying, moving to another item. So what we really wanted was move all child items, and we know how to do that in code in C#. So what we did was we made a context in the PowerShell script that basically cut and paste child items. So we cut all those. I didn't move them yet because it's just a cut. And let's just paste them to this blank one here. And refresh, and hopefully they're there. Cool. So they moved. So let's take a look at how that one was done. This one's a little more interesting, since it uses a feature that, I don't know, Mike, did you mention the session piece? Or Mike,
I did not.
Did you?
Well, I mean, you have the ability to store things in session, and some of what you're showing actually is doing that, but some of that's going to be brought to the forefront. Oh, thank you. Some of that would be brought to the forefront of the ISC. And I think there are examples out of the box that will actually show you how to do things like that.
Cool. Content editor. So really there's not much here. I mean, this is all really simple stuff. So we're just getting the children. So that's all we're doing here. I can't remember what this was for, so I ignore that. But I'm just getting the children here. And if we go to the item in the content tree, you can see there's some additional configuration on this one. So I thought we had an enable rule, but oh no, maybe that's the paste. Okay. So same, here's our script body again. But it's the session persistency. So essentially you can specify a unique session, and that you can then store things or use among scripts that you write. So now let's look at the paste child items. We'll just look at the code right in here instead of the ISE. But first thing we did was, you can see that the paste was not enabled. Well, it's because you really can't paste anything, so we want to make it apparent that there's nothing in your clipboard. So we just added a rule here where children copy session persistent is already initiated. So if that hasn't been initiated, there's nothing to paste. So we won't enable the option in the menu. And then all we're doing is iterating through. Oh, that's why we did it. Yeah, okay, so that's the target. So we're iterating through our children and then just calling the Sitecore move to for each item. And moving on. And then we have the same session ID. And that's it. So that's all I had to show. But anything else?
You're set?
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
That's it.
So cool real world example of actually using PowerShell for product management. Anyone have questions for Mike or Adam?
I haven't done. Sure. Hi. I haven't done any PowerShell scripting per se, but in terms of the syntax, how close is the extension scripting to just regular PowerShell?
Yeah, what you have here inside of Sitecore is the exact same. I mean, we're trying to make sure that all the commandlets, conform to the approved verbs out there on the, I guess it's MCN site. There might be a few that don't, like, I guess, expand tokens. The expand verb may not be actually valid, but we decided to go with that route on some of the commands because it made sense. But yeah, it's very, very close. But answer question.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Another question?
So you showed earlier how to, thank you. You showed earlier how to run these things on kind of a scheduled interval. Is there a way to almost make them event-driven? So the example you had, you run a script and it tells you if there's more than 20 sub-items in the content tree. Is there a way to do it in real time? So if you're at a threshold, if you're at 19, the second you add the 20th one, that script will automatically fire. Is there a way to do that out of the box?
There's an event handler integration. Oh,
I'll do it, Mike. That's fine.
thank you. There's now an event handler integration point inside of this module. I haven't used it myself, so I don't really know how it works. But I think this would be a good blog post idea, actually. Yeah, I'll touch base with the rest of the team, and maybe I'll write something.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
PowerShell usually has a what if. PowerShell usually has a what if. I forgot, like, argument against it. Is that something we can do? So for something where you were showing we want to execute, but we want to see what it's actually going to do before we do it.
I don't know. I've never actually tried that. Maybe. I'm assuming yes, because everything that's in the ISE comes from Windows PowerShell, and then we add on top of it. So
I know the older version didn't have that, so I didn't know if that was something that might have been added.
I didn't know you actually can do that. So
you showed us an example of where it didn't work. So when things don't work and they break, how's debugging?
So in the ISE, when you run, you can run a script in there, and then the blue area shows you exceptions. So the .NET exceptions, whatever, PowerShell exceptions, whatever is there. So you'll get like, oh, there was an error on line, whatever, a character, whatever. You can go there and try to troubleshoot.
Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily debug it while you're using the features, but you could then go to ISC and replicate what you were doing with the mouse, per se.
Yeah, exactly. So in the ISE, there is So in all these scripts where you saw, you can set the context, and that's essentially in the, right, that you just set that to where I was right clicking. And then you can run it right in here and get feedback.
Any other questions? Nothing? Cool. Well, thank you all. Thanks so much to our presenters. And thanks to everyone watching online and watching on YouTube later. And like Derek said at the beginning, we are actively looking for presenters. If you have something cool, Sitecore related, you want to talk about here, please talk to Derek. We got like 3 months, man. But no, thank you all, and drive safe and enjoy the cold weather.